Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics, busy election season episode, Oktoberfest no less. We are joined by the Democratic nominee for the governor of the great state of Missouri, Representative Crystal Quade. Thank you so much for the time.
Good morning.
So let's start off. How's the campaign going?
It's going great. We're having a lot of fun traveling the state, going to a lot of places that I haven't been in a very long time, and we've been having a really great time.
I have got to follow you on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. You do go to more places than your average Democrat nominee. You are in places, you're not just on 70 and then going down to Greene County. I've seen you well off the beaten path. Some Missouri places, you might say.
Yeah, as we should be. You know, I want to represent the entire state as governor, and so it's my job to meet with as many folks as I can and understand the issues that every single county in Missouri is facing.
But let's talk about the campaign. There's got to be some areas that you're focused on where you think there's voters who historically voted Republican that you think will come over and vote for you. Where are the pockets of support you're kind of focused on shifting some of that demographic?
Yeah, I mean, of course, in the suburbs of the larger cities, we know that folks are moving towards more Democrats. That's where the House has been flipping seats. And so we know for this race, we need to be looking at those places too. But, you know, as mentioned, we are traveling to places that you wouldn't expect Democrats to go. And, you know, some of those are in the boot heel and places where Democrats used to get elected all the time. And it's just been a minute. And so we're focusing, you know, cities, suburbs, and some of those rural pockets as well.
Did it really help you being the House Minority Leader? You've ran the Democrat House effort now 3 cycles. You've seen where those voters do shift. You talk about where you picked up House seats. You were the one at the tip of the spear picking up those House seats. Did that experience help you run this campaign, the statewide campaign?
Yeah, absolutely it has. First off, I'm no stranger to a lot of these places that I think if I hadn't have been the leader, maybe would have been the very first time I've gone to some of these communities. And so I've been present. Folks know who I am and are seeing me for multiple times, which is great. But yeah, it has given us, knowledge of where those folks are and what those issues are that are moving people and that have been for the last few cycles. And so leaning into those for this race has been helpful.
So let's talk about what you're out visiting with folks. What are you hearing from folks, not just in the suburbs, but all around the state? What are they telling you when you're out shaking hands?
Yeah, of course, the topic of the abortion amendment comes up everywhere I go. And it's been, quite honestly, a really shocking experience because when I first started running for office back in 2015, it was don't ever talk about abortion because you're never going to get anywhere. And now, I am in very rural parts of the state and people will come up to me and sometimes very quietly and share their stories with me about, having miscarriages and needing access to care or that they've got daughters. I talked to a man a couple of weeks ago at a turkey festival and he was telling me I've got 2 daughters and I really care about this issue and I've never been involved before. So that's coming up, of course, everywhere. And we expect that to continue to grow as that campaign kicks off.
As though, I think right now, if you just ask, most people I know don't voluntarily talk about abortion. You'd have to bring it up. But if they did, I think they'd say, well, right now the law seems a little much, right? A little too far pro-life. I think maybe most Missourians are in that safe, legal, and rare era. Are you sensitive to concerns, though, this amendment goes past safe, legal, and rare and maybe swings the pendulum too far the other way?
I'm not at all. Yeah, and to your point, the things that folks are saying to me are deeply personal stories of them, oftentimes trying to have children and there being complications. And the reality is what we have in Missouri right now is too far and too extreme. And, we had over 800 doctors sign that letter just a couple weeks ago saying that the law in Missouri was too far and they can't do their jobs and save the lives of women.
Wow. So give me a prediction. You probably know better than anybody. You're somewhat tied into that campaign and you're getting around the state. Give me the prediction. Does Amendment 3 pass? I'm going to put you on the spot. What's it pass by?
Oh, I absolutely think it'll pass. I think it'll pass by, I would say 53 or higher.
See, I was thinking it was like a 55-45. I mean, you've seen this firsthand. It is the true value of being in the legislative branch at a high level like you've been. You have to be intimately familiar with all these issues and their backstories. You have a pro-life community that's very divided. I mean, even the signs, right? You see different type of signs depending on which group's opposing Amendment 3, which I think most folks that sit in these chairs around this table tell you need a uniform message. They don't have one, and they're not well funded. But let me ask you a question I asked Mallory Schwartz last week. Do you feel like, as a person who was in charge of picking these seats up, that it is, and I think we've seen this, suburban people are able to vote for policies they want, such as pro-choice policies, such as anti-right to work, such as marijuana, Medicaid expansion, but then they vote for a Republican for the state legislature that's against all those things, but they kind of get to pick the best of their worlds and split the baby.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing that we are focusing on with this specific campaign, with my campaign, because, as you know, Mike Kehoe, Lieutenant Governor, has said that he's very much against Amendment 3. In fact, said that he would tank his entire governor's race to make sure it fails. And so there is a huge difference between he and I.
That?
I mean, he said it.
I don't think he meant that.
I generally say the things I mean, but
would you take your whole campaign to make this pass? Because I wouldn't believe you either.
Well, he said it. And here's the thing is that there is a true difference between us and where we stand on this issue. Absolutely. He said it during the debate we had, the forum we had just a couple weeks ago as well. And so that is my responsibility as a Democratic gubernatorial candidate to make sure that that message is getting across, that we had Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman quoted in the paper saying that if it passes, the first thing she's going to do when she gets back to Jeff City in January is work to undo it. And so this is real. And we know, to your point, just with the other issues, that we as Democrats have to make sure that voters who are supporting Amendment 3 know that they have to elect us as well to make sure that their voices are listened to.
Do you think the tenor of this abortion conversation, I mean, I think the common sense will tell you every 2 years now, there's going to be something on the ballot, right? That breaks down and either attacks or chips away at this law, whereas right to work was on the ballot, was over, Medicaid expansion was on the ballot, and then the Supreme Court finally made it over. Do you think this abortion law, it'll just be every 2 years, which I think might actually help Democrats running for the legislature?
You know, my honest response to you, Scott, is I hope that it's not. I hope that folks can make sure that their voices are heard. Amendment 3 passes and doctors
but
can
in
start
reality,
it depends on who we send back to Jefferson City.
When you start talking about those contrasts, it is. I watched on the presidential level, Kamala Harris will make a policy pronouncement, and then folks will say, "Well, you've been there for 3 years. Why didn't you do it? The last 3 years?" Which I think is a pretty decent point. When Republicans make policy pronouncements, it is true they've held the legislative, executive, and executive branches for 6 years now in super majorities. Some of the things like, well, why haven't you done that, right?
Right, 100%. And you know as well as I do, and the folks who watch the show, last year we had the least amount of bills passed in Missouri's history, with the Republicans holding everything in supermajorities. And I'm one for
take credit for that. You and Rizzo and Beck.
I think that's a big part of it for sure, but it's also a reflection of the inability to govern and work together, even within their own party. And when we are ranking last in all of these things, but yet the folks in power are not doing anything about it, literally doing nothing at all, that's a problem.
But if you were the leader of the supermajority of Democrats in this state, as there historically has been, frankly, you'd have the same problem. You'd have internal fighting, and I mean, a supermajority can't hold together, can it?
I mean, potentially, I don't know. I've not served in that capacity, but I think that's why this election
is right? See how it goes?
I mean, sure, but I think that's why this election is so important. And this is, again, something I hear all across the state, regardless of party. People want balance. And you know as well as I do, you have good policy discussions when you have different opinions at the table. And for too long, it has been one party trying to control everything. And we're not having good policy discussions because it's folks just trying to go further to the right so that they're winning their primaries. And that's what's been holding the Senate floor instead of actually talking about things that matter for Missourians and having a real discussion about it.
Representative Crystal Quade, the Democratic nominee for governor, thank you so much for your time. Good luck out there.
Thank you for having me.
Was Representative Crystal Quade. She's the Democratic nominee for governor. It makes a compelling case. We'll talk about that case with Kyerra Johnson's debut on the show after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
I've been teaching for 22 years. I'm also the mom of a 9th and 6th grader. Education is really important to me, and that's why I'm voting for Amendment 2. By legalizing sports betting, Amendment 2 will generate more than $100 million for our schools over the next 5 years. Amendment 2 will help pay excellent teachers more, and it will improve our schools. Take it from this classroom teacher. Amendment 2 is the right thing to do.
We have 2 beautiful boys, but along the way, we had 3 miscarriages. I'll never forget the day the ultrasound tech just left the room. There was a complication. An abortion was the right decision for us, a private medical decision. Missouri's abortion ban is terrifying. There are no exceptions, and doctors can't provide care to women miscarrying. Vote yes on Amendment 3 because these decisions belong to us, not politicians.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance in support of Missouri farmers.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back. This week in Missouri Politics, campaign season edition, Oktoberfest edition. We are joined by Jonathan Ratliff. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
The one woman I probably can argue with the least on this panel, Casey Burns, or at least I have the worst track record of winning said arguments.
Worst track record of winning, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Kyerra Johnson, Chief of Staff to Senator Mosley. Thank you so much. First time on the show.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited.
Glad to have you. And Sharon Jones, thank you so much for the time. Let's start with these amendments. It does feel like maybe the amendments are more competitive than some of the actual races in this pretty deeply red state. Let's talk about gambling. Right now, you have all these people that run and say, I'm running for liberty. I'm running for freedom. Unless you want to put $10 on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think that, I remember growing up in Missouri in the 80s and 90s, and gambling was always one of the big vices, right? We don't do it here. And now we're, I think, in a new era where there's enough money and enough industry in it where people don't feel that way as much anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen on November 5th, but I know that people are pulling out all the guns to try to get those two things across the line.
Okay, John, I see. Break this down for me on issue set. All the Republicans say they're for liberty and freedom. Most of them are only for it as long as you do the things they want you to do. Other than that, they're totally tyrannical, the most liberal people you'll ever meet. I break down. I understand the casinos have came in and spent some significant money to beat this back. What is their end game there? What's in it for them?
Well, I think specifically Caesars has come in to spend significant resources against this effort. And I think, there was an article I think came out this morning in The Independent that talks specifically about the coalition that's being built against this effort. And typically on any IP, no matter whether it's this issue or a more nonpartisan type issue, if you don't start off high enough on the ballot from a polling perspective, I think you're going to struggle a lot. And I think I'm not sure they started off high enough with all the resources that Caesars is putting to bear against this. And I even think the other casinos weren't necessarily fans of it. Caesars just had the resources to put forward to try to kill it. That, along with the Missouri Baptist.
Why do they care enough to put? I mean, casinos don't just do things out of the goodness of their heart, right?
Well, I can't speak for Caesars, but I would imagine they probably don't feel like they're getting enough cut of what comes in. I think there's something similar was passed in Kansas. Kansas has it. I think I read something $100 million was wagered on the Super Bowl. And Kansas said schools only got like $1,400. And so I think if you kind of look at that disparity, I know you see the TV ads, I see them on social media of all these, of what the benefit to schools is supposed to be. But if millions and millions of dollars are being spent and only $1,000 is coming back to the schools, I think that's
Amendment 3 in
a disingenuous argument.
We have to sit in the Senate, and now it's a joke. Everyone rolls their eyes when some Republican says, I'm for freedom and liberty and whatever buzzword you heard on Twitter that day. We all roll our eyes like, here we go again, another clown. They're all for freedom and liberty, as long as you're doing what they want you to do.
I know what
I think that ultimately, though, that we're doing something which is bringing it back to the people. So they have this question that they have to answer, and I think that they're going to answer it well. And I think that Missouri is going to do a great job. I don't think that sports betting is going to be something that's going to be too crazy. I mean, 38 other states are doing it, and so Missouri is just going to go a part of that, I think. And I think that they're going to project that this is going to be something that's going to be great as far as tourism is concerned, and being able to make sure that, I think later on that we can come back to your point to make sure that we can make sure that this education also is something that gets funded adequately as well, though.
It's gotten ridiculous. I mean, there's a bar just across the state line in Kansas City that basically says, we have a brunch for all of you Missouri gamblers coming over Sunday mornings, laying your Chiefs bed down, come have a Bloody Mary, have a mimosa, have brunch, and then go drive back over. The government's almost a joke sometimes when it tries to control your life.
I get that. But I think that ultimately that the money and the revenue that we're going to bring in, I think that it's really going to be great for the state. So I think that that's the upside to it. Like, we have a really great budget. I think last night we had a really great meeting with some of the local legislators that are running, like Dave Griffith, and they talked about how much revenue that Missouri has increased. So I think at one point it was $23 billion. Now we've reached about 50-something billion. And so I think that as long as we have a great expectation for how we're going to make sure we allocate these funds, we're going to have a lot of people coming into Missouri, and this time they'll be coming over on our side.
I like it. Casey, I think you just tell a regular person, just break the law. The law's so idiotic and stupid. It's just a joke to itself.
Look, I have a lot of friends that live in Kansas City and St. Louis, and they go across the state lines every weekend to bet on their sports teams. To me, it seems like something all of our border states have. It seems like a no-brainer to me to expand that. But we've seen, I was reading this morning, over $20 million poured into this ballot initiative on both sides. I don't know if the messaging will persuade the voters or confuse the voters.
To show this point, though, is very challenging. Missourians are almost reflexively vote no. Mm-hmm. It's very challenging if you have an organized, funded campaign on one side. It's hard to get them to go against their normal grain of just voting no.
Yeah, especially with something as complicated. When you go through and you read it, and the advertising they're getting versus the language that they're going to read when they go into the ballot box doesn't necessarily align. And so I think that's where the conflict.
The biggest problem here is the Cardinals are so bad. Like, what one of those losers would you put out as the face of a ballot measure? I mean, you'd have to go get Pujols, right, or Molina.
Just Fred Bird. That's the only one.
Yeah. I will be voting for Fred Bird, but does this pass? Give me a prediction.
Oh, I think it does, but I think it's close.
I'm going to give it a yes.
I was going to say it was going to pass until they kept Marmol and Mazalak. Now I'm on the fence, but I'll probably end up voting for Fred Bird.
You know, this is the one issue that I hear normal people that aren't super involved in politics talk about regularly. So I think it's got a chance of passing.
I don't know. I think it's going to, I don't think it passes.
Like, my heart is with Fred Bird, but my head is with the standings. I think you might be right. Sharon, let's talk about Amendment 3, the amendment that would legalize abortions. Everybody's going to debate on how far. I had two very intelligent women on last week. Mallory Schwartz made the case for Amendment 3. Jennifer Bukowski made the case against. I thought they give you a lot to think about. The question I'll ask you, the question I asked them, I think right now, common sense folks would say, this law is a little more restrictive on abortion than we're comfortable with. I think the attack would be that this law is a little more expansive than they want it to be. Am I wrong?
I don't know. You know, I've been on the show a couple times now saying I think it's going to fail. It'll be close, but it won't pass. I'm starting to be persuaded the other way because I'm watching the Vote No campaign operate on the same tactics they were in the late 90s and the early 2000s, where they are trying to rely on church communities and these inside baseball, almost whisper campaign tactics. They're not communicating to the persuadable voters. They're communicating to their base. And
that is the pro-life movement, though, in a nutshell, frankly, for the last several years.
I don't think it's going to be successful this time for them.
John Lorello, I guess to me, I think normal people I know don't talk about abortion. It's not like you're having dinner in someone's home and they're like, oh, what about abortion policy? I think there is a sense that maybe Bill Clinton was right. Safe, legal, and rare is where the majority of the Missouri public is. Can the pro-life folks convince them that this thing is way too far permissive on abortion, where it's not safe, legal, and rare? It goes way past that to a different standard.
Yeah, I think it comes down to every election is about what question you're asking the voters to answer. And so I think it comes down to Sharon's point is what are we asking the voters to answer? Is Missouri's abortion law too extreme, therefore we need Amendment 3 to correct it? Or can the pro-life effort, can the no on 3 effort be to counter to that, which says this language is too extreme. This is a late-term abortion. Amendment 3 will allow late-term abortions. It will allow a whole plethora of other problems that Missouri voters, even the more moderate suburban voters, would be opposed to. I think, we see polling all the time from a House perspective that comes back and says that a lot of pro-life voters are open to exceptions, other things that our current law doesn't allow. But the question is, can we paint it as a no on 3 team? Can we paint it to say this effort is too extreme and we should vote no on that? And I think that's what the ballot's going to come down to.
Casey, I've seen signs, two different. It's absolutely the pro-life community. You have some signs that look one way, some signs look the other way. They just can't get along.
So Republicans are notorious for not being able to get unified on a ballot measure. And I think we're seeing that here play out. And the no on 3 effort is already behind on funding. Like Jonathan said, between state House and state Senate races, we see a lot of statewide polling where people identify as pro-life, but they are going to vote yes on 3 because they think the state law has gone too far for them. Now, are they educated on what Amendment 3 actually does, how vague it is, or all the exceptions that may be allowed? I don't know. I can't answer that. I would guess probably not. I won't be voting.
The pro-life folks have enough money to tell them all those things.
No. They don't have, if they did, they don't have a unified effort to do it.
Yeah, it is, again, it is folks offering, when you're offering folks a choice, usually they want to take that choice. On abortion, it is the most unique thing. Nothing really applies to abortion. It's its own little thing out there. I just feel like when you have a divided opposition like the pro-choice community does, and when you have a funding advantage of 10, 15 to 1, you have to feel pretty good about the passage of Amendment 3.
Well, you know what? I think that you're right, but I also think that Sharon brought up a really great point. I think a part of any good campaign, you want to make sure that your strategy is well. And I think if we take a look at who's voting right now, this is the millennial generation, right? And I think that a lot of us are out there and we're ready to go out and vote. And you think about those that are consistently in the church, which is declining, by the way. You're thinking about the boomer generation. So I think that there's a really huge divide there. And if there's not enough funding to be able to continue to push to millennials and the people that are ready to vote out there right now, I think that we're going to kind of...
Trump undercut a lot of that religious right juice. I mean, let's be honest. Donald Trump's a lot of things. Super religious is not one of them.
I mean, I can probably agree with you on that, but I just think that making sure that your focal point is clear is something that is going to play a major variable in how people vote. And again, if we're just relying on boomers that go to church every Sunday to make sure that they're the people that are out there pushing for Amendment 3 to not pass, then I think that we're probably looking at it to pass.
Joe Mayonnaise is not going to like that analysis, but I tend to think you're right. Let's talk about this governor's race. You have Mike Keogh, the bull of the woods. I don't think anybody could have beat him. But Crystal Quade, very talented, competent, great standard bearer. I don't think the question is, can she beat Mike Keogh? Because I don't think anybody could beat Mike Keogh. Maybe you saw some Hail Marys if it was one of the other two primary candidates, but not Keogh. What is success for her? Is it getting one more vote than Galloway?
No, I think that she sees herself as a leader in the Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And I think her idea of success is bringing everyone along with her, is pushing turnout such that we see a win for the Democrats in 15, we see a win for the Democrats in 11, and 17, which is also still a toss-up. So I think for her, it's about those down ballot races and bringing up Democratic turnout enough to impact state Senate and state representative races.
I mean, I don't think anybody's beating Mike Keogh. I don't think that's possible.
Because that's illegal.
There you go. And I don't think it's logical to say, oh, Crystal Quade's the definition of success is beating Keogh, because that's not real. What does success look like for her?
Well, I kind of have two options. I think if she's going to run for Senate 30 in 2 years, and so tries to focus, and we'll be able to see from her media buy if she focuses heavier on Springfield and tries to boost her name ID further. The challenge will be that is a toss-up district, and right now the Democratic Party, especially in the running statewide, have a tendency to attack as far to the left as possible to drive turnout and to kind of message to their base. And so does her message start to be more of a moderate message, get things done type message, then maybe, and she runs heavy in Springfield, then I think that's her strategy. But I think we could see, if we just look at HDCC fundraising and how abysmal that is right now in a year that they should have a pretty good opportunity to challenge Republicans. They haven't raised it. And so I think no matter what happens for election night on her, the success or failures of the House Democrats should be kind of laid at her feet, because the resources as their leader, right, even though she's moving on as their leader, they have no money. They looks to me to be the least amount of money they've had in a very, very long time, with potentially one of the greatest opportunities they've had.
Yeah, I think success for her would be one, you top 4 years ago, which is possible. 2, you win Senate District 30, where she would be the likely Democrat nominee. And then, some of these other races. Is that a success for her on election night?
You know what? I think that victory isn't always what we think it is. I think about our current, or one of our most previous presidents, which was Jimmy Carter, an amazing president, if I might say, but he only won like that one term, right? He wasn't able to get reelected again, which was okay, because history was able to show Jimmy Carter as one of the greatest presidents of all time, at least in my opinion. And so I think about Crystal Quade, that maybe her victory isn't right now the way we see it, but it's going to be down the line for those girls that have ambitions on running for office one day. And I think that that's where she'll stand in the gap.
I like that. Nobody beats Mike Kehoe, right?
No, I don't think so. But it will be interesting, to Jonathan's point, to see if Crystal focuses on suburban areas, Kansas City and St. Louis, and tries to drive up margins there, or if she spends all of her money in Springfield for future hopes. And to claim she's, defending
a Republican would say be self-interested spending Springfield, right?
Yeah, but this Republican hopes she doesn't.
Yeah. All right, Sharon, with a minute left, who won the week?
Honestly, I think civility. We had this vice presidential debate, and it's the first time in a long time that I haven't cringed within the first 30 seconds. So I think...
I cringed a little later, but I kind of agreed by the first.
Yeah, but there at the beginning, we started off nice, so...
Who won the debate? Who won the week?
I'm just really just going to give it up to them doing a better job than our presidents did, or our current candidates that are running. And I think that their overall debate was a lot better than a lot of MFs maybe coming out, possibly, and a lot of other things.
I'm white trash. I kind of like it when Trump goes white trash in debates. But who won the week?
I'm going to stick with the fundraising lane here. Looking at those end of quarter large contributions, I'm going to say Mike Kehoe won the week.
Who won the week?
I think, it's not the biggest champion of grassroots ever. I do think the Republican grassroots effort right now, to kind of the counterpoint of which you go around the state of Missouri and you see all these different signs on the pro-life movement, on the No on 3. I think that shows similar to the anti-right to work effort a few years ago. There is a grassroots movement out there excited about driving turnout, which will help all Republicans up and down the ballot. And I think that is a positive move for the week.
I'm going to say Kansas City and Quinn Lucas. They said the NCAA announced their regional championship games. Kansas City had another great haul. I think it's just a sign of all the great things happening in Kansas City. You got to give the guy at the top the credit for that. I say Quentin Lucas won the week. Hope you'll win the week next week by joining us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.